So good morning, everyone. Good to see you all again. And as you can see today, we have the pleasure to have with us Professor Ove Granstrand. He's professor in industrial management and economics at Chalmers University of Technology in Gothenburg. And as we usually do in this type of interviews, we like to have a little conversation with him about the latest paper that he and his co-authors have published in Technovation. So good morning, Professor Granstrand, and it's a pleasure to have you with us.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
And well, to begin the conversation, as we usually do in this type of interviews, we would like to get to know what drove you to write this paper in Technovation. What was the idea behind it?
Well, I could stretch out the roots 50 years back, but don't worry about that. I won't do that. The immediate reason I would say was a paper together with my co-author Marcus Holgersson, where we developed a new definition of an innovation ecosystem. And we also outlined some ideas we had at that time, how we could refine the theory behind it. And part of the paper is now a follow-up on that previous paper. But another route stretches into my interest far back in mathematical modeling. And in this case, I thought cooperative game theory would be a nice way to approach a formalization of the previous qualitative definitions and conceptual elaborations. So that drove my interest. And finally, there are some empirical examples which I've pondered over for many years. They are very simple and so on, but they are very rich when you go deeper into their structure and their implications. So I would say that those three, call them forces or motivations, was driving me into this paper. And I'm very glad I finished it by now, because it also opens new avenues for further research, which keeps me driving on that road ahead. All right.
Yes, that's actually one of the questions that it's good that you raised, because that's one of the questions that I wanted to ask you about. You know that in Technovation we pay a lot of attention, we emphasize a lot, which is a role of new generations of researchers, the PhD students or the postdocs or the early career researchers. Mm-hmm. So particularly going back to those future research avenues that you identify in your paper, what could be some potential ideas or research areas that the new generations of scholars dealing with technological innovation could jump on?
Yes, well, let me mention two. Probably there will be more coming up during my conversation. But one is, well, let's call it an established wish in the field of game theory as well as in applications of it. And that is to find approaches to analyze a mixture of cooperation and competition. And people call that coopetition. And cooperative games are not very well developed in the theory field. So there is a separation, you might say, between cooperative and competitive game theory. But there is a need to merge those two strands of game theory. And also in empirical world, I mean, we are seldom purely cooperating or purely competing. We are most of the time in a mixture of both. So there is a lot of empirical circumstances, examples, applications of any modeling of coopetition. So that's one idea, to go further, both theoretically, merging the two strands of game theory, and into the empirical field, find stylized examples or what have you in the empirical world. So that's a very good avenue further ahead, and it doesn't necessarily need a lot of techniques in mathematics or modeling. One could get quite far ahead without those, although it facilitates the road traveling if you have those techniques as well. So the second idea is more speculative. So one virtue of formalizing something is that Well, of course, it deepens your understanding. It reveals a lot of hidden assumptions and logical flaws, etc. But it also provides computational tools. And here I think the article now in question has the power to point out how computational tools could be further developed. And let me try to illustrate. You could let's call it model an innovation ecosystem in three ways: algebraically, and graphically, and textually. By textual model, I mean that you simply describe something that you observe, in this case, an innovation ecosystem, or for what for any ecosystem, by the way. That's part of the article's message, that you could easily generalize innovation ecosystem definitions to ecosystems in general. That's a side comment. So if you can describe those ecosystems by text, and you could make the text fairly logical using conjunctions and disjunctions, A and B, or C and D, etc., which you could very many times get quite far ahead by just using simple but logical language. If you do that, you could then use some of the large language models in AI, the generative AI now very hyped, I would say, but well, partly for good reasons. And it could, and now comes the speculation, it could kind of formalize the description you input into a logical string of words, which in turn could be converted into algebraic formulas. And by describing an innovation system, converting it into a logical language, which then could be connected to some models of how you value, how you create value and capture value in such a system. You could then use the computational tools, which you also could call artificial intelligence tools. So by that, I mean, you could go from a textual description of something you observe, and you could get it converted into a formal model which calculates some of the variables of interest to you. For instance, how value is created and how it is shared, how it should be shared among different actors and artifacts. So that's my second idea for the future, which is very speculative, I admit, but why not? I mean, sooner or later we'll see convergence of the generative AI and the general AI, which links text and mathematical formulas. So that's two ideas. Hopefully, younger generation could manage to do that, and hopefully I will survive and see how it plays out. Okay.
Very good. So you would be opening a new field also for the simulation of different scenarios once we understand how the systems work according to the language that explains the functioning of the system, how that can be translated into economic formula or modeling. It would also open, I guess, scenarios for potentially simulating what would happen in the system if we change this part of it. Is that
Yes. So that's what I envisage. I will throw in one particular application, which I think is, it's not a low-hanging fruit, but it's not too high up in the trees. If you take a system, let's call it a technological innovation system, where you have different technologies that are patented. So you have the tangible patents to start with, and those are well documented in patent applications, and it usually have quite a narrow kind of language, you would say. about the claims, etc. That could be translated into a model of based on cooperative game theory of the whole portfolio of a of patents of some sort. Okay, and once you got that into the model of the type that is presented in the paper, you could start calculating what patents create most value and what should be the share of the value created that it could be allocated to each patent. For instance, if you would like to license that out on some fair and reasonable non-discriminatory terms, so you have this celebrated, for very good reasons, approach, which is called Shapley evaluation, and Lloyd Shapley got the Nobel Prize, not for that particular contribution in the first place, but he made several others as well. But it's his kind of approach to have, in a specified sense, a fair division of value created to be allocated to the various entities that jointly create that value in the first place. So that's something you could do. And what shall I say to put the bar on some reasonable height? That would probably be feasible within time range of 5 years, I would guess.
Yeah, so definitely a lot of food for thought for the new generations, and also for you as well to continue developing this really promising field of research with your colleagues and at your university. So
yeah, I have a neighbor who's a professor in AI, so I will dip into this problem a little bit, I hope, as well. Okay.
Yes. So million thanks, Professor Granstrand, for this very, very illustrative explanation and very comprehensive and detailed explanation about the current work and about the future work as well. So we are very grateful that you accepted our invitation to share your thoughts with us.
Okay, I'm very grateful for this opportunity as well. And wish all of you young researchers good luck. It's a very nice occupation. I've never regretted it at all. Thank you.
Thank you very much, and looking forward to continuing the reading of your papers at least.
Thank you very much. Thank you.